The invitation arrived like a grenade, glossy and gold-embossed, detonating Riley Carter's carefully rebuilt life. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Connor Hayes and Emily Vaughn. Her ex-fiancé's name stared back at her, smug and unyielding, from the cream-colored card she clutched in her San Francisco apartment. Riley, 28, had spent the last 2 years piecing herself together after Connor left her at the altar. His abrupt exit blamed on needing to find himself. Now, he was marrying Emily, a Pilates instructor with a perfect smile, in a lavish vineyard wedding in Napa Valley. The RSVP card burned in her hand, but the thought of showing up alanepitied by old friends and judged by Connor's smug family was unbearable. She needed a plan, a shield, someone to walk in with her and make Connor choke on his vows. Enter Ethan Caldwell, her co-worker at the tech startup where Riley coded algorithms by day and dodged office gossip by night. Ethan, 30, was the kind of guy who could charm a room without trying tousled brown hair, a lopsided grin, and a knack for diffusing tension with a well-timed joke. He was also openly gay, which made him the perfect candidate for Riley's wild idea: fake a relationship to survive the wedding weekend. No strings, no complications, just a performance to save her pride. Absolutely not, Ethan said, leaning back in his chair at their open-plan office, his coffee mug emblazoned with code hard. Love soft. I'm not playing straight for a weekend, Riley. I'd rather debug 1,000 lines of bad code. Please, Riley begged, her brown eyes wide with desperation. It's one weekend. We show up, act disgustingly in love, and make Connor regret ever leaving me. You're my only shot at not looking like a loser. Ethan raised an eyebrow, his hazel eyes glinting with amusement. You think I'm that convincing? I haven't dated a woman since high school drama club, and even then, I was better at playing Hamlet. Riley slid the invitation across his desk. You owe me for covering your last sprint deadline. Besides, you love a challenge. And there's an open bar. He sighed, flipping the card over. Fine. But if I'm doing this, we're going all in. Pet names, hand-holding, the works. I'm not half-assing a fake boyfriend gig. Riley grinned, relief flooding her. Deal. We'll be the couple of the century. The Napa Valley Vineyard was a postcard come to life. Rolling hills, rows of grapevines, and a sprawling estate glowing under fairy lights. Riley and Ethan arrived on Friday evening, their rental car crunching gravel as they pulled up to the venue. Riley's emerald green dress hugged her curves, and Ethan's navy suit made him look like he'd stepped out of a rom-com. They'd rehearsed their story. They'd been dating for 6 months, met at a team-building retreat, and were madly in love. Riley had even coached Ethan on her quirks, her love for spicy food, her habit of humming jazz tunes when nervous. As they stepped into the welcome reception, heads turned. Riley felt Connor's gaze before she saw him. He stood across the lawn, tall and polished in a crisp white shirt, his blonde hair catching the golden light. Emily, his fiancée, clung to his arm, her laugh like wind chimes. Riley's stomach twisted, but Ethan's hand found hers, warm and steady. Showtime, he whispered, his breath tickling her ear. They wove through the crowd, Ethan's arm around her waist, his charm on full display. He introduced himself to Connor's snobby cousins as Riley's better half, earning laughs and raised glasses. Riley played along, leaning into his touch, her smile brighter than it had been in months. For a moment, she almost believed the lie. Then Connor approached, his blue eyes narrowing. Riley, he said, his voice smooth but edged with something sharp. Didn't expect to see you here, with someone. Ethan extended a hand, his grin unfaltering. Ethan Caldwell. Riley's told me so much about you. Congrats on the big day. Connor's handshake was stiff, his smile forced. Thanks. You two seem close. Oh, we are, Riley said, her voice syrupy sweet. She leaned into Ethan, her hand resting on his chest. Couldn't be happier. Emily joined them, her smile faltering as she sized up Riley. It's so nice you could make it, she said, her tone dripping with politeness. And with such a handsome date. Ethan chuckled, pulling Riley closer. I'm the lucky one. Riley's one of a kind. As Connor and Emily drifted away, Riley exhaled, her heart racing. You're scarily good at this, she muttered. Ethan winked. Told you I'd sell it. Now let's get some wine before I start believing my own hype. The weekend unfolded like a high-stakes theater production. At the rehearsal dinner, Ethan spun a story about their first date at a jazz club, complete with fabricated details about Riley spilling wine on his shirt. The table erupted in laughter, and Riley marveled at how effortlessly he wove fiction into truth. By the time dessert was served, she was laughing for real, her guard slipping. But cracks appeared in their facade. Connor's sister, Lauren, a nosy 35-year-old with a penchant for drama, cornered Riley in the bathroom. So, you and Ethan, she said, reapplying lipstick. It's a little sudden, isn't it? I mean, after Connor. Riley's smile tightened. Love doesn't follow a schedule, Lauren. Lauren smirked. Sure. Just seems convenient, showing up with a guy like that. Riley's pulse quickened, but she held her ground. Ethan's amazing. You'd know if you spent 5 minutes with him. Back at the table, Ethan sensed her tension. Everything okay? He asked, his voice low. Just Lauren being Lauren. Riley muttered. We need to be careful. She's sniffing around. Ethan nodded, his hand brushing hers under the table. We've got this. Just keep looking at me like I'm the only guy in the room. Riley met his gaze, and for a fleeting moment, the world shrank to just them. His hazel eyes held a warmth she hadn't noticed before, a steadiness that made her heart stutter. She pushed the feeling down. This was fake. It had to be. By Saturday morning, the vineyard buzzed with wedding preparations. Riley and Ethan navigated brunches and photo ops, their chemistry convincing even the most skeptical guests. But as the ceremony loomed, Riley's nerves frayed. She hadn't anticipated how seeing Connor at the altar would reopen old wounds. Ethan found her on a balcony overlooking the vines, her hands gripping the railing. You okay? He asked, his voice soft. She shook her head. I thought I was over him. But being here, it's like I'm back in that church, watching him walk away. Ethan leaned against the railing, his shoulder brushing hers. He's an idiot, Riley. You're brilliant, funny, and way too good for a guy who couldn't see that. She looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. You don't have to say that. I'm not just saying it, he replied, his gaze steady. I've spent 2 days pretending to be in love with you, and it's not exactly hard. Riley's breath caught. Was he joking? Flirting for the sake of their act? Before she could ask, a bell rang, signaling the start of the ceremony. They took their seats, Ethan's hand in hers, as Connor and Emily exchanged vows. Riley braced for pain, but it didn't come. Instead, she felt Ethan's thumb tracing circles on her hand, grounding her. When the crowd applauded, she realized she wasn't watching Connor, she was watching Ethan. As the reception began, they danced under the stars, their bodies close, their laughter real. Riley's heart pounded. Not from Connor's presence but from Ethan's. The line between pretense and truth was blurring, and she wasn't sure she wanted to redraw it. The dance floor glowed under strings of fairy lights, the band playing a slow jazz number that made the air feel thick with possibility. Riley's hand rested in Ethan's, her other arm around his neck as they swayed, their fake romance feeling dangerously real. She could feel Connor's eyes on them from across the reception. But for the first time, his gaze didn't sting. "You're a better dancer than I expected," Riley teased, her voice light to mask the flutter in her chest. Ethan's lips curved into that lopsided grin. "I've got moves you haven't seen yet, Carter." His hand tightened slightly on her waist, and she wondered if he felt the same electric hum she did. The song ended, and the crowd clapped, but their hands stayed linked. Riley caught Lauren watching them. Her eyes narrowed like a hawk circling prey. "We've got an audience," Riley whispered, nodding toward Lauren. Ethan followed her gaze. "Let's give her something to talk about." Before Riley could protest, he dipped her dramatically, his face inches from hers. The crowd whooped, and Riley laughed, her heart racing as he pulled her upright. "You're insane," she said, breathless. "Gotta keep up appearances," he replied, but his eyes lingered on hers a beat too long. As the night wore on, the reception became a blur of toasts, clinking glasses, and Connor's family throwing subtle shade. Riley overheard his aunt muttering about rebound relationships, and it took everything not to snap back. Ethan, ever the diplomat, steered her toward the dessert table instead. "Try the chocolate tart," he said, handing her a plate. "It's almost as sweet as our fake love story." Riley snorted, taking a bite. "You're enjoying this way too much." "Maybe I am," he said, his tone teasing but his eyes serious. "You're not exactly terrible company." She rolled her eyes, but warmth spread through her. Ethan had a way of making her feel seen, not as Connor's ex but as herself. Riley, the coder who loved jazz and spicy tacos, who laughed too loud and cried at Pixar movies. It was disorienting, how easy it was to be with him. Their moment was interrupted by Connor, who appeared with a glass of champagne and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mind if I cut in?" he asked, his gaze fixed on Riley. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he stepped back. "She's all yours. For now." Riley shot him a reluctant leave-ma, but he gave her a reassuring nod before heading to the bar. Connor took her hand, leading her to the dance floor. His touch, once so familiar, now felt foreign. "You look good, Connor said, using the nickname that used to make her melt. "Happy, even." "I am," she said, her voice firm. "Ethan's been incredible." Connor's smile faltered. "Yeah, he seems like a great guy. Just didn't expect you to move on so fast." Riley bristled. "You don't get to comment on my life, Connor. Not after what you did." He winced, his grip on her hand loosening. "I know I messed up. I didn't think you'd show up here with someone like him." "Someone like him?" Riley's voice sharpened. "You mean someone who actually shows up for me?" Before Connor could respond, Ethan reappeared, a glass of wine in hand. "Mind if I steal my girlfriend back?" he asked, his tone light but his eyes hard. Connor stepped away, muttering something about catching up later. Riley exhaled, her hands shaking as Ethan pulled her close. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. "Yeah," she lied, leaning into him. "Thanks for the save." "Anytime," he said, and she believed him. Later, As the reception wound down, Riley and Ethan slipped away to a quiet corner of the vineyard. The night air cool against their skin. They sat on a wooden bench, the distant hum of music mixing with the chirp of crickets. Riley kicked off her heels, her bare feet brushing the grass. "This weekend is exhausting," she said, leaning her head back to stare at the stars. "I don't know how you're still standing." Ethan chuckled, loosening his tie. "Years of practice faking it at family reunions. You should see me dodge my mom's questions about settling down." Riley turned to him, curious. "You never talk about your family. Or your love life, for that matter." He shrugged, his gaze distant. "Not much to tell. My parents are great, but they're old school. Took them a while to get okay with me being gay. As for dating, let's just say I'm not great at the real thing." Riley frowned. "What do you mean? You're basically perfect." He laughed, but it was hollow. "Hardly. I'm good at playing a part-charming coworker, supportive friend. But letting someone in, that's Messier." She reached for his hand, surprising herself. "You're letting me in right now." He looked at their joined hands, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, well, you're easy to talk to, even when you're dragging me into your revenge plot." She smiled, but her chest ached. This was supposed to be a game, a performance to get through the weekend. So why did it feel like they were building something real? The next morning, the final brunch was a minefield of hungover guests and lingering tensions. Lauren cornered them again, this time with Connor's cousin, Matt, a tech bro with a penchant for prying. "So, Ethan," Matt said, smirking over his mimosa, "how'd you two really get together? Riley's not exactly your type." Riley froze, but Ethan didn't miss a beat. "Funny thing about love," he said, draping an arm around Riley. "Sometimes it's the person you least expect who steals your heart." Matt raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "Sure. Just seems like a big coincidence. You showing up right before the wedding." Riley's heart pounded, but Ethan's hand squeezed hers under the table. "Coincidence?" he said, his voice smooth. "Nah. I've been trying to get Riley to notice me for months. Took a wedding invite to finally make my move." The table laughed, and Matt backed off, but Riley could feel Lauren's eyes boring into her. They were walking a tightrope, and one wrong step could unravel everything. As brunch ended, Riley and Ethan packed their bags, preparing to leave the vineyard. But Connor caught them at the car, his expression softer than before. "Riley, can we talk? Alone?" Ethan hesitated, but Riley nodded. "I'll be fine," she told him. He gave her a look. "I am right here if you need me," before heading to the car. Connor shoved his hands in his pockets, his voice low. "I owe you an apology. For everything. I was a coward back then, and seeing you with Ethan, it made me realize what I lost." Riley's throat tightened. She'd waited 2 years for those words, but now they felt hollow. "You don't get to do this, Connor. Not now." "I know," he said, his eyes pleading. "But if you're ever not with him, I'd like a chance to make things right." She stared at him, the man who'd once been her world, and realized he no longer held that power. "I'm happy, Connor. Really happy." As she walked back to Ethan, her heart was lighter than it had been in years. But the look in Ethan's eyes, part relief, part something deeper, made her wonder what they were walking toward next. The drive back to San Francisco was quiet, the hum of the car's engine filling the space where words should have been. Riley stared out the window, the vineyard's golden hills fading into the distance, while Ethan's hands gripped the wheel a little too tightly. Connor's apology echoed in her mind. But it was Ethan's steady presence beside her that anchored her thoughts. "You're quiet," Ethan said finally, glancing at her. "Everything okay after that chat with Mr. Perfect?" Riley sighed, tucking a curl behind her ear. "He apologized. Said he wants a chance to make things right if we don't work out." Ethan's jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on the road. "Bold of him to assume we won't." She turned to him, surprised by the edge in his voice. "You know this was just for the weekend, right? We don't have to keep pretending." He didn't answer right away, and the silence felt heavier than it should have. "Yeah," he said at last, his tone unconvincing. "Just a weekend." Riley's chest tightened. She wanted to ask what he meant, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she changed the subject. "You were amazing back there. I owe you big time." Ethan's grin returned, softer this time. "Told you I'd sell it. Now you owe me tacos from that food truck you're obsessed with." "Deal." She laughed, but the question lingered. What happened now that the curtain had fallen on their act? Back at the office on Monday, the world felt different. The hum of keyboards and the buzz of deadlines were the same, but Riley couldn't shake the memory of Ethan's hand in hers. His laugh, his quiet confessions under the stars. They slipped back into their coworker routine, joking over coffee, debating code, but every glance felt charged. Every brush of their hands deliberate. Their boss, Priya, a sharp-witted 40-year-old with a knack for reading people, noticed. "You two seem cozy," she said during a team meeting, her eyes twinkling. "Something happened at that wedding." Riley's face flushed. "Just survived a weekend of bad champagne and nosy relatives," she said, forcing a laugh. Ethan leaned back in his chair, casual as ever. "What can I say? Riley's a great +1. Priya smirked but let it drop. Riley, however, couldn't escape the feeling that their fake relationship had left a mark neither of them could ignore. That evening, they stayed late to debug a project. The office empty except for the glow of their monitors. Riley caught Ethan watching her, his expression unreadable. "What?" she asked, her voice teasing. He hesitated, then leaned forward, elbows on his desk. "This weekend, it was fun. More than I expected." Her heart skipped. "Yeah, you made it bearable. More than bearable." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Riley, I need to tell you something." Before he could continue, her phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "Saw you and Ethan at the wedding. Cute act. But I'm not buying it. Call me." Riley's stomach dropped. She showed Ethan the screen, and his face darkened. "She's fishing," he said. "Ignore her." But Riley couldn't. Lauren's suspicion was a loose thread that could unravel everything, not just their lie, but the fragile something growing between them. What if she tells Connor? Or worse, starts digging? Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "Then we keep up the act a little longer. At least until she backs off." Riley nodded, but the idea of pretending with Ethan felt wrong now. Not when her feelings were starting to feel so real. Over the next week, they leaned into the ruse. They grabbed coffee together in front of coworkers, posted vague couple-y photos on social media, selfie at the Golden Gate Bridge, their hands barely touching. Riley told herself it was just to keep Lauren at bay, but every moment with Ethan blurred the line further. One night, they ended up at Riley's apartment, sprawled on her couch with takeout tacos and a bad action movie. Ethan's laughter filled the room, and Riley found herself watching him more than the screen. He caught her staring and raised an eyebrow. "What's that look for?" he asked, popping a chip in his mouth. She hesitated, her heart pounding. I'm just glad you're here. Fake boyfriend or not. His smile softened, and he set down his plate. Riley, about what I was going to say at the office. Her phone rang, cutting him off. It was Connor. Against her better judgment, she answered. I need to see you, Connor said, his voice urgent. I can't stop thinking about you. About us. Riley's grip tightened on the phone. Ethan watched her, his expression unreadable. There is no us, Connor, she said firmly. I'm with Ethan now. Are you? Connor pressed. Because Lauren seems to think you two are faking it. Riley's blood ran cold. She hung up without another word, her hands shaking. Lauren's talking to Connor. She told Ethan. She's calling our bluff. Ethan's face hardened. Then we double down. We make it convincing. But as they sat there, the movie forgotten, Riley wondered if convincing was the problem. What if she didn't want to fake it anymore? The next day, Ethan suggested a public date to shut down the rumors. They chose a bustling farmers market in the Mission District, where they could be seen laughing, holding hands, and playing the perfect couple. Riley wore a sundress that made her feel bold, and Ethan's casual Henley shirt hugged his frame just right. They wandered through stalls of fresh produce and artisanal bread, their banter easy but their touches hesitant. As they shared a peach, juice dripping down Riley's chin, Ethan reached out to wipe it away, his thumb lingering on her skin. You're a mess, he teased, but his voice was soft, intimate. Her breath hitched. You're not so perfect yourself. For a moment, they stood frozen, the market's chaos fading away. Then a voice broke the spell. Well, isn't this cozy? It was Lauren, arms crossed, a smug smile on her face. Riley's heart sank, but Ethan stepped forward, his arm around Riley's waist. Hey, Lauren. Just enjoying a day with my girl. Lauren's eyes narrowed. Sure. You two are adorable. Almost too adorable. Riley forced a laugh. Jealousy doesn't suit you, Lauren. But as Lauren walked away, Riley's confidence wavered. She looked at Ethan, his jaw tight, and knew they couldn't keep this up forever. The question was, what happened when the act ended? The farmer's market encounter with Lauren left a bitter taste in Riley's mouth, like biting into an unripe fruit. She and Ethan walked back to his car in silence, their fake date now feeling like a performance under a microscope. Riley's mind raced. Lauren's suspicions were spreading, and Connor's call had stirred up doubts she thought she'd buried. You okay? Ethan asked, unlocking the car. His voice was gentle, but his eyes searched hers for something more. Riley forced a smile. Just tired of playing defense. Lauren's not going to let this go. Ethan leaned against the car, his arms crossed. Then we give her nothing to work with. We're airtight, Riley. No cracks in the story. But there were cracks, and they both knew it. Not in their story, but in the space between what they said and what they felt. Riley wanted to ask what he'd been about to say at her apartment, but fear held her back. What if this was all just a game to him? The next week was a blur of work and pretense. They amped up their public displays lunch dates at trendy cafes, tagged Instagram posts of them at a comedy show. Their laughter staged but their chemistry real. Riley's co-workers started calling them the power couple, and even Priya began asking for wedding invites. Each compliment felt like a double-edged sword, sharpening the divide between their act and the truth. One evening, Ethan invited Riley to a jazz club in the city, a nod to their fake first date story. The dim lights and soulful saxophone created a bubble around them, shutting out the world. They sat at a small table, sipping cocktails, their knees brushing under the table. "You know," Ethan said, swirling his drink, "if we were really dating, I'd take you here every weekend. You'd hum along to every song, and I'd pretend to be annoyed but secretly love it." Riley's heart fluttered. "You've thought about that?" He met her gaze, his expression unguarded. "Maybe I have." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Another text from Connor. "Can we meet? Just to talk. I know I don't deserve it, but please." Riley's stomach twisted. She showed Ethan the message, expecting him to laugh it off. Instead, his face darkened. "You're not actually considering it, are you?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe hearing him out will shut him up for good." Ethan set his drink down, his voice low. "Or maybe he's trying to get in your head. He had his chance. Riley, why give him another?" She stared at him, surprised by the intensity in his voice. "Why does it matter so much to you?" He opened his mouth, then closed it, running a hand through his hair. "Because you deserve better than a guy who only wants you when you're with someone else." The air between them crackled, and Riley's pulse raced. She wanted to push, to ask what he was holding back. But the moment passed as the band struck up a new song. They finished their drinks in silence, the unspoken words piling up like bricks. The next day, Riley agreed to meet Connor at a coffee shop near her apartment. She told herself it was closure, nothing more. Ethan didn't argue, but his silence as she left the office spoke volumes. Connor was already there when she arrived, looking unfairly good in a flannel shirt, his blonde hair catching the afternoon light. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice soft. "I know I don't deserve it." "Get to the point, Connor," Riley said, her arms crossed. He leaned forward, his eyes earnest. "I messed up. I was scared, and I ran. But seeing you with Ethan, it woke me up. I still love you." Riley's chest tightened, but not with the longing she'd once felt. "You don't love me, Connor. You love the idea of me, the one you left behind." "That's not true," he insisted. "I'm ready now. I want us to try again." She shook her head, a laugh escaping her. "I'm with Ethan. And even if I wasn't, I wouldn't go back to you. I'm done living in your shadow." As she walked away, her heart felt lighter, but a new weight settled in. She needed to talk to Ethan, to figure out what was real and what was still part of their act. She found him at his apartment, a cozy loft in the Mission District filled with books and vinyl records. He opened the door, his expression guarded. "How'd it go with Prince Charming?" "I told him to get lost," Riley said, stepping inside. "I'm done with him." Ethan's shoulders relaxed, but his eyes were still wary. "Good. You deserve better." "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling, "what are we doing? This fake dating thing is not feeling so fake anymore." He froze, his gaze locking onto hers. "Riley, Her phone rang, interrupting him again. It was Lauren, and Riley sent it to voicemail, but the moment was broken. Ethan stepped back, rubbing the back of his neck. "We should talk about this later. When we're not in the middle of all this." Riley nodded, her heart sinking. "Yeah, later." But as she left, she couldn't shake the feeling that later might be too late. Riley's apartment felt too small that night, the walls closing in as she replayed her conversation with Ethan. His hesitation, The way he'd pulled back it gnawed at her. She wanted to believe the warmth in his eyes was real, but doubt crept in like fog over the bay. The next morning, she found a note slipped under her door. Ethan's handwriting, neat and deliberate. Meet me at Ocean Beach. 6 p.m. We need to talk. No signature. No image, just a request that felt like a lifeline. She spent the day distracted, her code riddled with errors as her mind churned. Was Ethan going to end their charade? Or was he about to say something that would change everything? By the time she reached the beach, the sun was dipping low, painting the waves gold. Ethan stood by the water, his hoodie rolled up to his elbows, his hair tousled by the wind. You came, he said, turning to her. His smile was tentative, vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. You didn't give me much choice, she replied, shoving her hands in her pockets. What's this about? He took a deep breath, the ocean roaring behind him. I've been lying to you, Riley. Not about the fake dating that was real enough, but about how I feel. Her heart stopped. What do you mean? I'm not straight, he said, his voice steady but soft. You know that. But spending this time with you, pretending to be your boyfriend, it's made me question things. About myself. About us. Riley's breath caught. Ethan, you don't have to. Let me finish. He interrupted, his eyes pleading. I've never felt this way about anyone. Not like this. You're brilliant and stubborn and so damn alive. And I don't know if this is real or if I'm just caught up in our act. But I can't keep pretending it's nothing. The world tilted. Riley stared at him, the crash of waves drowning out her thoughts. Are you saying you have feelings for me? He nodded, his expression raw. I think I do. And it scares the hell out of me. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. It scares me too, because I think I feel the same way. For a moment, they just stood there, the space between them electric. Then Ethan reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. So what do we do now? He asked. Riley swallowed, her heart pounding. We figure it out. Together. They spent the next hour walking along the beach, talking about everything and nothing. Ethan told her about his first crush, a boy in high school who broke his heart, and how he'd built walls to protect himself. Riley shared her fear of being hurt again, of trusting someone after Connor's betrayal. It was messy and honest, and for the first time, they weren't performing. But reality crept back in. Lauren's texts had escalated, each one more pointed. I know you're faking it. Connor deserves the truth. Riley showed Ethan the latest message, her stomach twisting. She's not going to stop, Riley said. And if she tells Connor, he'll never let it go. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we tell the truth. Not to them, but to ourselves. If this is real, we don't need to hide it. Riley nodded, but doubt lingered. Could they really turn their lie into something true? The next day, they decided to confront Lauren head-on. They invited her to a neutral spota park near the office hoping to shut down her crusade. Lauren arrived with her usual smirk, her arms crossed like she'd already won. So, she said, eyeing them, ready to come clean. I talked to Connor. He's convinced you're playing him. Riley's temper flared, but Ethan squeezed her hand, grounding her. Lauren, he said, his voice calm but firm. You're barking up the wrong tree. Riley and I are together. For real. Lauren laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Right? And I'm supposed to believe you just magically fell for her after years of being gay. Ethan's eyes didn't waver. Love doesn't always make sense. But it's real. And it's ours. So back off. Riley's heart swelled. But Lauren wasn't convinced. We'll see, she said, turning on her heel. Connor's not done with you yet. As she walked away, Riley turned to Ethan. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did, he said, his voice soft. Because I meant it. That night, they ended up at Ethan's loft, cooking pasta and trading stories. The air was lighter, but the weight of Lauren's threat lingered. As they sat on his couch, Riley's head resting on his shoulder, she felt a shift. This wasn't a performance anymore. It was real, and it was terrifying. Ethan, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What if we mess this up? He tilted her chin up, his eyes warm. Then we mess it up together. He kissed her then, soft and tentative, like he was testing the waters. Riley kissed him back, her heart racing as the world fell away. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling, their hands still entwined. But as Riley left his apartment, her phone buzzed with a new message from Connor. I know the truth. Meet me tomorrow, or I tell everyone. Her heart sank. The game wasn't over yet. Riley stared at Connor's text, the words glowing like a warning sign in the dark. I know the truth. Her stomach churned as she stood outside Ethan's loft, the memory of their kiss still warm on her lips. She wanted to run back inside, to tell him everything, but fear stopped her. What if Connor's threat exposed them before they could define what they even were? She texted Ethan instead. Connor's pushing. Wants to meet tomorrow. I don't know what to do. His reply came fast. We'll handle it. Together. Come over in the morning. Relief mixed with dread as she headed home, the city lights blurring through her tears. The next morning, Ethan greeted her with coffee and a plan. We don't let Connor control the narrative, he said, pacing his living room. If he thinks he's got something on us, we call his bluff. Riley clutched her mug, her hands unsteady. What if he knows we started this as a lie? Lauren's been feeding him doubts. Ethan stopped pacing, his eyes locking onto hers. Then we tell him the truth, that it started as a lie but isn't anymore. He doesn't get to dictate what we are. His certainty steadied her, but the thought of facing Connor again made her skin crawl. Okay, she said finally, but we do it on our terms. They chose a public Placia-busy diner in the Castro, where the clatter of plates and chatter of patrons would keep things civil. Connor was already there when they arrived, his posture stiff, his eyes darting between them. Riley's heart pounded, but Ethan's hand in hers kept her grounded. All right, Connor said, leaning back in the booth. Let's hear it. Lauren says you two are faking this whole thing to mess with me. Riley's temper flared, but Ethan spoke first, his voice calm but sharp. Lauren's wrong. Riley and I are together. That's all you need to know. Connor's eyes narrowed. Bullshit. You're gay, Ethan. Everyone knows it. What? You just suddenly decided to date her. Ethan's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. I don't owe you an explanation, Connor. My life. My choices. You lost the right to question Riley's when you left her. Connor flinched, but he turned to Riley. You're really buying this. He's playing you. Don't call me that, she snapped. And don't pretend you care about me now. You had your chance, and you blew it. The diner seemed to quiet, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Connor's face softened, but there was a flicker of desperation in his eyes. I know I hurt you, but I'm trying to fix it. If this thing with Ethan isn't real, It's real. Riley cut in, her voice fierce. She squeezed Ethan's hand, drawing strength from his warmth. More real than anything I ever had with you. Connor stared at them, his expression crumbling. For a moment, Riley thought he might argue, but he just shook his head and stood. Fine. I hope you're happy. As he walked out, Riley exhaled, her body trembling. Ethan pulled her close, his arm around her shoulders. You were amazing, he whispered. She managed a shaky smile. We were amazing. But the victory was short-lived. That afternoon, Lauren posted a cryptic message on social media. Some people will do anything for attention. Truth always comes out. The post got traction, with Connor's friends chiming in, speculating about Riley and Ethan's convenient relationship. Riley's inbox filled with messages from old acquaintances, some curious, others outright accusing. We can't keep reacting to her, Ethan said, scrolling through the comments on his phone. They were back at Riley's apartment, takeout containers scattered on the coffee table. We need to take control. How? Riley asked, her voice tired. She's turning this into a soap opera. Ethan grinned, a spark of mischief in his eyes. Then we give them a better story. Something undeniable. He suggested a bold move, a public declaration of their relationship. Not as a defense but as a celebration. They'd host a small party at a rooftop bar, invite their friends and coworkers, and show the world they were together. No pretense. No apologies. Riley hesitated. What if it backfires? What if people don't believe us? Then we make them believe, Ethan said, his voice steady. Not by lying, but by being us. The party was set for Saturday, and the days leading up to it were a whirlwind. Riley and Ethan planned every detail, from the playlist to the signature cocktails. Their teamwork seamless. But doubts lingered. Riley caught herself watching Ethan, wondering if he was as certain as he seemed. Was he falling for her? Or was he just good at playing the part? The night of the party. The rooftop glowed with string lights, the San Francisco skyline glittering below. Their friends mingled, laughing and dancing, but Riley's nerves were frayed. Lauren had RSVP'd, and Riley braced for her inevitable jab. When Lauren arrived, she was all smiles, but her eyes were sharp. Cute party, she said, sipping a drink. Very convincing. Ethan appeared at Riley's side, his arm around her waist. Glad you think so, he said, his tone light but firm. Stick around for the toast. The toast was their moment. Ethan clinked a glass, drawing everyone's attention. I want to thank you all for being here, he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. This last month has been a wild ride, but it's shown me what matters. Riley's not just my girlfriend, she's my partner, my best friend, and the best thing that's ever happened to me. Riley's throat tightened as the crowd cheered. She met Ethan's gaze, and for the first time, she didn't doubt what she saw there. When he kissed her, soft and sure, the world faded away, and the applause felt like it was just for them. But as the party wound down, Riley's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Nice show. But I know the truth, and I'm not afraid to spill it. Her heart sank. Someone wasn't done playing games. The anonymous text haunted Riley as she stood on the rooftop, the party's laughter fading into the background. Nice show. But I know the truth. She scanned the crowd, her eyes landing on Lauren, who was whispering to a friend, her smirk unmistakable. Was she behind this, or was someone else pulling the strings? Ethan noticed her tension and pulled her aside, his hand warm on her arm. What's wrong? he asked, his voice low. She showed him the message, her hands trembling. Someone's trying to ruin us. His face hardened, but his touch stayed gentle. Let them try. We're stronger than that. Riley wanted to believe him, but the threat felt like a shadow over their fragile new reality. They'd fought so hard to turn their lie into truth, but now it felt like the world was waiting for them to slip. The next morning, Riley woke to a flood of notifications. The anonymous sender had posted on social media, a vague but pointed jab. Some couples are built on lies. Stay tuned for the real story. The post was gaining traction, with comments from strangers and acquaintances alike, speculating about Riley and Ethan's relationship. Her stomach churned as she read the words fake and scam over and over. Ethan came over, his face grim as he scrolled through the same post. "This is getting out of hand," he said, tossing his phone onto her couch. "We need to find out who's behind this." Riley nodded, her mind racing. "It's got to be Lauren. She's been gunning for us since the wedding." But Ethan wasn't convinced. "Maybe. But this feels personal. Like someone who knows more than they should." They decided to dig deeper, starting with Lauren. Riley called her, keeping her voice calm despite the anger simmering inside. "We need to talk," she said when Lauren picked up. "This social media crap stops now." Lauren's laugh was sharp. "I don't know what you're talking about. Sounds like you've got bigger problems than me." Riley hung up, frustrated. "She's dodging, but I know she's involved." Ethan paced, his hands in his pockets. "We need proof. Let's check the accounts posting this stuff. Maybe there's a trail." They spent the afternoon hunched over Riley's laptop, tracing the anonymous account's activity. The posts were careful, no direct names, but the timing lined up with Lauren's appearances. One comment caught Riley's eye, from a user named Truth-Teller. "Check their work emails. The truth's in the details." Riley's blood ran cold. Work emails. How would anyone know about that? Ethan's face paled. "Unless someone at the office is involved." They headed to the office that evening, the building eerily quiet. Using Riley's admin access, they searched their work emails for anything suspicious. Most were routine project updates, meeting invites, but one thread stood out. It was between Ethan and Priya, from weeks before the wedding, where Ethan had jokingly mentioned playing Riley's boyfriend to get out of a team retreat. "Oh no," Riley whispered, her heart sinking. "If someone saw this." Ethan's jaw tightened. "It's out of context, but it's enough to make people doubt us." They printed the email thread, their hands shaking. It wasn't proof of the anonymous poster's identity, but it was a crack in their armor. If Lauren or whoever was behind this, they'd found a weak spot. "We need to confront Priya," Riley said. "She's the only one who'd have seen this." Ethan hesitated. "Priya's on our side. But yeah, we need to know if someone else got access." The next day, they met Priya at a coffee shop, away from the office's prying eyes. She listened as they explained the situation, her expression shifting from amusement to concern. "I didn't share that email," Priya said, her voice firm. "But our servers aren't exactly Fort Knox. Someone with enough motivation could have gotten in." Riley's stomach twisted. "Who would do that?" Priya leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "You've got enemies, Riley. Not everyone's happy you moved on from Connor. And Ethan, you're not exactly low profile at the office." Ethan frowned. "You think this is someone we work with?" "Maybe," Priya said. "Or someone connected to Connor. I'll check the server logs, See if anyone's been poking around. As they left, Riley's mind raced. The idea of a coworker betraying them was unsettling. But the alternative Connor orchestrating this was worse. That night, Ethan stayed over at Riley's. The tension between them softened by exhaustion. They lay on her couch, her head on his chest. The cities hum a distant comfort. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this," Riley said, her voice muffled. "It was supposed to be one weekend." Ethan's hand traced circles on her back. "I'm not sorry. Messy as it is, I wouldn't trade this for anything." She looked up, her eyes searching his. "Even with all this drama?" He smiled, brushing a curl from her face. "Especially with all this drama. It's worth it for you." Her heart swelled, and she kissed him, slow and deliberate, like she was staking a claim. When they pulled apart, Ethan's eyes were bright, but his voice was serious. "We're gonna figure this out, Riley. No one's tearing us apart." But as they fell asleep, Riley's phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. "You can't hide forever. The truth's coming." Her blood ran cold. The game was far from over. The anonymous messages were a drumbeat in Riley's mind. Each one louder, more insistent. She and Ethan were running out of time to unmask their tormentor, and the weight of it pressed against their budding relationship like a storm cloud. Riley woke to Ethan's steady breathing beside her. His arm draped over her waist, and for a moment, she let herself believe they could outrun this. But the morning brought a new blow. Priya called, her voice tense. "I checked the server logs. Someone accessed your emails from an external IP 2 weeks ago. It's not Lauren, she doesn't have the tech skills. But I can't trace it further without risking my job." Riley's heart sank. So it's someone with enough know-how to cover their tracks. "Exactly," Priya said. "Be careful. Whoever this is, they're not playing around." Ethan, listening on speaker, rubbed his temples. "This is getting out of control. We need to end this." Riley nodded, her resolve hardening. "We go on the offensive. We draw them out." Their plan was risky but simple. Bait the anonymous poster into revealing themselves. They'd post a cryptic message of their own, hinting at knowing who was behind the attacks, and watch for a reaction. Ethan drafted the post. "Some people hide behind screens. But we see you. Step into the light." They shared it on their social media, tagging no one but knowing it would reach the right eyes. The response was immediate. Comments flooded in, most supportive. But one stood out from Truth Teller. "You're bluffing. Keep pretending. But I've got proof." Attached was a screenshot of the email where Ethan had mentioned playing boyfriend, cropped to look damning. Riley's hands shook as she showed Ethan. "They're not backing down." "Then neither do we," he said, his voice steely. "Let's set a trap." They decided to host a small gathering at Ethan's loft, inviting their closest friends and a few suspects: Lauren, Matt, and a coworker, Jenna, who'd been oddly quiet lately. The goal was to watch their reactions, to see who slipped under pressure. The night of the gathering, Ethan's loft was warm with candlelight and the clink of glasses. Riley played the perfect hostess, her smile masking her nerves as she watched their guests. Lauren was her usual smug self. Matt was loud and oblivious, but Jenna seemed nervous, her eyes darting to her phone every few minutes. Ethan pulled Riley aside during a lull. "Jenna's acting weird," he whispered. "Keep an eye on her." Riley nodded, her heart racing. She approached Jenna, offering a refill. "You okay? You seem distracted." Jenna's smile was forced. "Just work stress. You know how it is." But Riley didn't buy it. When Jenna excused herself to the bathroom, Riley followed, catching her typing furiously on her phone. Riley's pulse quickened. Was Jenna the one? Before she could confront her, Ethan's voice rang out. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" He stood in the center of the room, holding up his phone. "We got another anonymous message tonight. But this time, they slipped up. The IP traces to someone in this room." The air stilled. Lauren's eyes widened. Matt looked confused, and Jenna's face went pale. Riley's heart pounded as Ethan continued. "Whoever you are, this ends now. Come clean, or we take this to the police." Jenna bolted for the door, but Riley stepped in her path. "Jenna, what's going on?" Tears welled in Jenna's eyes. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "Connor asked me to dig up dirt. He said you were lying to hurt him." Riley's blood boiled. "So you hacked our emails? Posted those lies?" "I didn't hack anything," Jenna said, her voice shaking. "Connor gave me access. He's obsessed with you, Riley. He wouldn't let it go." Ethan joined them, his face a mix of anger and relief. "Why, Jenna? You're our friend." Jenna sobbed. "I owed him a favor. I didn't think it would hurt anyone." The room was silent, the other guests watching in shock. Riley took a deep breath, her voice steady. "You need to leave. And tell Connor it's over." Jenna nodded, grabbing her coat and fleeing. Lauren, for once, had nothing to say, her smirk gone. Matt just shook his head, muttering about drama. After the guests left, Riley and Ethan collapsed onto his couch, the weight of the night settling over them. "I can't believe it was Jenna," Riley said, her voice hollow. "And Connor." Ethan pulled her close, his arm around her shoulders. "He's desperate. But he's not our problem anymore." Riley leaned into him, her heart still racing. "What if he doesn't stop?" "Then we keep fighting," Ethan said, his voice firm. "Together." She looked up at him, his face lit by the soft glow of a candle. "This is real, isn't it?" He smiled, brushing a thumb across her cheek. "As real as it gets." They kissed, the world falling away, but Riley's phone buzzed again. Another message from Connor: "You win this round." "But I'm not done." Her heart sank. The battle wasn't over yet. Connor's latest message burned in Riley's mind like a fuse, threatening to ignite everything she and Ethan had built. "You win this round. But I'm not done." She showed it to Ethan as they sat in his loft, the city's skyline a distant glow through the window. His face darkened, but his hand found hers, steady and sure. "He's bluffing," Ethan said, his voice calm but firm. "He's got nothing left." Riley wanted to believe him, but Connor's obsession felt like a shadow she couldn't shake. What if he doesn't stop? What if he keeps coming after us? Ethan pulled her close, his lips brushing her forehead. "Then we face him together. No more running." The next day, they went to Priya, laying out everything: Jenna's confession, Connor's role, the anonymous posts. Priya's face was grim as she listened. "This is harassment," she said. "You could press charges." Riley hesitated. The idea of legal action felt daunting, but the alternative, letting Connor control their lives, was worse. "What do we do?" she asked. Priya leaned forward, her voice steady. "First, we secure your accounts. I've already locked down the servers. Second, you confront Connor directly, on record. Get him to admit what he's done. Ethan nodded. We can do that. But we need to be smart about it. They decided to set up a meeting with Connor. But this time, they'd record it. Riley's stomach churned at the thought of facing him again. But Ethan's presence gave her courage. They chose a public park, neutral ground, and set the date for the next evening. The park was quiet, the evening sun casting long shadows across the grass. Connor arrived alone, his posture tense, his eyes wary. Riley held her phone in her pocket, the recording app running, while Ethan stood beside her, his presence a shield. You wanted to talk, Connor said, his voice clipped. So talk. Riley took a deep breath. This stops now, Connor. The messages, the posts, the lies. We know you were behind it. He scoffed, but his eyes darted away. You don't have proof. We have Jenna, Ethan said, his voice steady. She told us everything. You used her to dig up dirt, to hurt Riley. Connor's face paled, but he doubled down. You're the ones lying. This whole relationship is a sham to make me jealous. Riley's temper flared. You don't get to decide what's real. Ethan and I are together, and nothing you do will change that. Connor stepped closer, his voice low. You think you're over me. You'll never be over me. He's just a rebound. Ethan's hand tightened on hers, but Riley spoke before he could. You're wrong. I was over you the moment I realized I deserved better. And Ethan is better. The words hung in the air, raw and true. Connor's jaw clenched, and for a moment, Riley thought he might lash out. But he just shook his head. You'll regret this. As he walked away, Riley stopped the recording, her hands shaking. Ethan pulled her into a hug, his voice soft. You were incredible. She buried her face in his chest, relief washing over her. We got him. He admitted enough. They sent the recording to Priya, who forwarded it to the company's legal team. By the next day, Connor had been contacted by a lawyer, warned to cease all contact or face a restraining order. The anonymous post stopped, and the social media storm began to fade. But Riley couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unresolved. She and Ethan spent the weekend together, trying to reclaim normalcy. They cooked breakfast, danced to jazz records, and talked about everything but Connor. Yet the weight of their journey lingered, a reminder of how far they'd come. On Sunday night, as they sat on Riley's balcony, Ethan turned to her, his eyes serious. I need to ask you something. Her heart skipped. What? Are we doing this? For real? Because I'm all in, Riley. But I need to know you are too. She looked at him, the man who'd gone from coworker to fake boyfriend to something so much more. I'm all in, she said, her voice steady. I love you, Ethan. His smile was like sunlight, warm and bright. I love you too. They kissed, the city humming below, and for the first time, Riley felt free. But as they pulled apart, her phone buzzed with a final message from an unknown number. Enjoy it while it lasts. Her heart sank. Connor wasn't done yet. The final anonymous message lingered like a ghost, but Riley refused to let it haunt her. She and Ethan had fought too hard, built too much, to let Connor's shadow steal their light. As they sat on her balcony, their hands still entwined, Riley made a choice. No more fear. We end this, she said, her voice firm. No more games. We live our truth, and let Connor deal with it. Ethan's eyes softened, a smile tugging at his lips. I like the sound of that. They took proactive steps the next day. Riley filed for a restraining order, using the recording and screenshots as evidence. The legal process was daunting, but Ethan was by her side, his humor and warmth keeping her grounded. They also met with Priya, who ensured their work accounts were secure and offered to testify if needed. The office buzzed with gossip, but their friends rallied around them. Even Lauren backed off, her silence a grudging admission of defeat. The anonymous account went dormant, and Riley began to breathe easier, though she knew Connor's obsession might not fade so easily. Weeks passed, and their relationship deepened. They spent weekends exploring San Francisco, hiking in Marin, eating dim sum in Chinatown, dancing at jazz clubs. Ethan opened up about his past, his struggles with identity, and his hope for a future with her. Riley shared her dreams of starting her own tech company, and Ethan promised to be her first investor. One evening, as they walked along the Embarcadero, the bay sparkling under the moonlight, Ethan stopped, his expression nervous. "I got you something," he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Riley's heart raced, expecting a ring, but inside was a delicate necklace with a tiny emerald pendant. "It matches your dress from the wedding," he said, his voice soft. "The night I realized I was falling for you." Tears pricked her eyes as he fastened it around her neck. "It's perfect," she whispered. He kissed her, the world fading to just them. And Riley knew this was where she was meant to be. The necklace was a promise, not of forever, but of now, real, honest, and theirs. Months later, they attended another wedding, this time as a real couple. It was Priya's, a vibrant celebration in a garden overlooking the Pacific. Riley wore the emerald necklace, and Ethan couldn't stop smiling as they danced, their movements easy and unforced. As the band played a slow song, Riley rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Remember when we were faking it?" she asked, her voice teasing. Ethan chuckled, his arms tightening around her. "Feels like a lifetime ago. But I'm glad we did. Got us here." She looked up, her heart full. "Yeah, here's pretty great." Connor's shadow faded over time. The restraining order held, and he moved to another city, his messages stopping for good. Riley and Ethan didn't look back. They built a life together, messy, real, and beautiful. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was honest, born from a lie that became their truth. One night, as they lay in bed, Ethan's fingers tracing the necklace around her neck, Riley smiled. "We survived my ex's wedding," she said. "What's next?" Ethan grinned, pulling her close. "Everything." And as they kissed, the applause of their past faded, replaced by the quiet certainty of their future, hand in hand. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.